I was gonna get an icon pass this season, but then got really into baking. I don't miss the mountain at all. I don't. Why would I? Just gotta fill that void.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for this education session, Thriving People and Thriving Business. Outdoor companies leading with inclusive and representative marketing. We have gathered a great panel for this discussion today. To get started, my name is Miho Aida, and I will be the moderator today. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I work for NatureBridge. And my favorite outdoor activity is adventure cycling and surfing. I will let the panelists introduce themselves. Let's start with Janice. Janice, can you tell us the following? Your name, pronouns, company, and organization you're affiliated with, and your favorite outdoor activity.
Thanks, Miho. My name's Janice Tennant. I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Merrill. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And when I think about my favorite activities, I love anything that gets me outdoors and sort of physical. So I love running and I love hiking are probably the two that rise to the top.
I'll go. Hi, everybody. My name is Myrna Valerio. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I live in Vermont. I am a brand advocate and ambassador for Merrill, and my favorite outdoor activities are trail running, the best outdoor activity, fat biking, hiking, skiing, and not bungee jumping.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allie Miles. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm the community and content manager at Roughwear. And my favorite outdoor activities are trail running, ski touring, and ski mountaineering with my dogs, Riggins and Fernspiegel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vasu Sojitra. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm on the ancestral lands of the Northern Cheyenne, Salish, Kootenai, Crow, Blackfeet, and many others that call Bozeman, Montana home. And I'm a professional athlete primarily for the North Face, which is who I'm representing here. And I'm also primarily known for backcountry skiing, adaptive backcountry skiing, and what I like to brand ninja sticking, which is anything to do in the outdoors with my forearm crutches. And I'll pass it off to Miho again to kick us off.
Thank you, Vasu, and thank you everyone for the introduction. And now, before we launch into the heart of this discussion today, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are in the midst of a pandemic that has taken the lives of almost 400,000 of our relatives as of this recording. And my heart goes out to those who are experiencing the loss, as well as many of you who may be tremendously impacted by it and yet showing up in this space today. So thank you. And this pandemic has exposed systemic racial inequities in health, education, housing, job security, and income, as well as access to the outdoors. And on top of that, just 2 weeks ago, a Confederate flag was brought into our nation's capital by white supremacists. Once again, we have the urgent need to fully acknowledge and address the painful and a dangerous legacy of white supremacy. So as much as it's difficult to face all of the inequities in our country, we have an incredible opportunity and a momentum for many new and existing outdoor industry leaders to step up to address justice, equity, and inclusion in all aspects of our lives as much as work. And we're going to make it happen by supporting each other and learning from each other. So let's get started. This session was created to highlight the successes of companies that are doing great work with their inclusive marketing. This panel will showcase when they got started, some lessons learned along the way, and how partnerships are crucial to the success of this work. In a kickoff breakfast on January 6th, with Lindsay Peoples-Wagner, mentioned that companies were only addressing inclusivity when problems arose or if there was an HR issue. She explained that inclusivity needs to be normalized and ensure it is a part of everything that brand does. And I would add that there is no external change without internal change. So with that in mind, let's start our conversation with internal cultural shift to be more inclusive. Ali, can you tell us about the brand culture and how they have incorporated inclusivity into all aspects of your brand?
Sure. I think that in many ways, Roughwear's culture is inclusive at its core. And I believe this comes from the companionship that we share with our dogs and an understanding among dog people just how much our dogs bring to our lives. For example, Roughwear has been developing gear for service dogs, guide dogs, and other types of working dogs for decades. Not as any part of a business strategy, but just because that's something that we were able to do. However, that said, we've also discovered in more recent years ways in which we've been unknowingly exclusive. Part of this discovery has happened as we've grown and added more people to our team who have pointed things out to our company. Among the most obvious examples is the lack of diversity among our internal team. I think we fell into a pattern that many outdoor companies might be able to relate to, and that's that we're hiring people who like all the same outdoor activities, share the same interests. Erica at State University's DI Lab gave us some really great insight about our recruiting language. We used to describe our company in the context of our outdoor town and its access to trails, skiing, mountain biking, and whitewater activities. And Erica pointed out that this type of language is actually pretty exclusionary because it doesn't encourage people who don't participate in those activities or who maybe face financial barriers or other types of barriers to the activities. It discourages them from wanting to work at Roughwear or maybe believing that Roughwear could be a good fit. So that was a really big eye-opener for us, and we've since changed the language in our job postings and recruiting materials, and we set a goal in our hiring practices to search for people that think differently and have different life experiences rather than those who seem similar to us. And then with our external facing marketing assets, we've lacked really every type of diversity, from race and ethnicity to geographical diversity in our photography and storytelling, and even to the dogs that we feature in our imagery. We tend to show a lot of medium-sized cattle dogs or lab mixes. And I think a lot of this lack of diversity is a reflection of our internal team. And so while we've been adding different voices and perspectives to our storytelling and our imagery, we're going to remain limited in this until we also add more voices and perspectives to the team that's shaping our company culture, our brand voice, and our marketing plans. So I've been really inspired by some other outdoor brands, including Merrill, and I'd love to hear your perspective, Janice.
Thanks, Ali. It's very interesting. There's a lot of similarities between what you've just shared. Location plays a huge role in the type of people that you can attract and retain into the organization. From a Merrill perspective, what I think is really interesting, I've only been on the brand for around 7 months. I started in June. And what's been really interesting to discover on my onboarding is that the team has been taking strides to really build in diversity and inclusion efforts into the brand for quite some time. For the past 2 to 3 years, they have been thinking about it in the way that they think about the representation from a marketing perspective. They've been doing things with respect to really reaching out to ambassadors for difference. So like Myrna, who's on this call here with us today. And so although it might not be all right and all perfect, we're making strides in that regard. The other interesting thing is that this moment in time has really allowed us to take a pause and to start to really dig deeper into sort of what's working and what's not. And one of the things that we're discovering along the way is, yes, we've made some of those strides, but we still have to find ways to really think differently about our hiring practices. There's probably some vulnerabilities that we didn't realize before with respect to how are we representing all different people in the outdoor spaces. And so even though we've made some strides over the past 2 years, this moment of pause of what came out of 2020 has got us sort of digging even deeper into understanding where those areas of opportunity are and how do we create actionable plans to drive change in that area.
Well, thank you so much for sharing about your internal effort. And what I heard is that it's taking the moment of pause. Janice was talking about what I would call it a transformational pause. I think it's really important to take the pause and really reflect and interrogate what Janice was talking about, what's working and what's not. And that maybe hiring practices, but also leading with vulnerability as leaders. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let's hear about some of the external effort, particularly about marketing. Janice, when did your inclusive marketing approach begin?
So really, it was part of a strategic effort for us, Miho, that took place back in 2019. And that's when the team dedicated more resources, really were more thoughtful about the type of partners and ambassadors that they wanted to be sort of reflective of this more inclusive outdoor space that we want to create as a brand. I would say that those efforts have probably been even stepped up over the past 6 months, and I have a line of sight to how it's even changing going forward. What do I mean by that? Well, the first thing is we actually did a complete audit of all of our marketing over the past year and a half. Is the stuff that we are hoping to see with respect to representation actually showing up in the marketplace for consumers to see? And the great news is when we looked at that, we're doing some great things well. For example, we have really strong representation of the BIPOC community we discovered, more so than sort of the US average. And this was a study that we actually did in all 3 continents, in Europe, North America, we did it in Europe, we did it in North America, were the 2 continents that we did it in. And so we feel really strongly that we're heading in the right direction there. But that audit also showed that we weren't being very representative of a couple of different things, like people of different body sizes, and that there's probably opportunity for us to work better in that regard. But also we found out that in representation, we wanted to go deeper than just sort of what was on face value in the sense of what's in our advertising. We also wanted to make sure that the people behind the scenes are also reflective of that diversity. And that's another area of opportunity that we're looking at. How do we find more inclusive and diverse groups to be representative from an agency perspective? We've really had some great partnership with some diverse filmmakers and so forth to really start to make sure that the storytelling and sort of the strategy behind what goes out to consumers also reflects a more diverse perspective. But I think it's, one thing for me to talk about it. I'd love to hear a little bit from Myrna, because Myrna has lived it firsthand and can probably talk a little bit more about like sort of her take on how we're doing and what we're doing well. And she's been playing a big part of our journey on helping us to even get better. So I'll turn it over to Myrna for her thoughts.
Hey, everybody. First of all, shout out to Meryl. I know I'm biased, but it's been an incredible journey with being part of a company that really reflects and aligns with my own core values. And I also want to say, if you see a lot of Black people in Brooklyn wearing Merrells, it's my entire family. They're not hiking. They're just wearing Merrells around the street. But I mean, I think that just goes to show that as someone who is an influencer, as someone who has a large community that follows everything that I do, the ability to see me, for them to see me representing activities and in the body that I am, that I'm in. I'm Black, I'm fat, I'm a woman. I have an urban background, to see themselves reflected in these activities that they don't normally see themselves in is huge. It's life-changing, it's game-changing. And I think, and I would argue, Janice, that Meryl started, I mean, maybe it wasn't official, but y'all started doing something as far as marketing is concerned and inclusion when I came on as an ambassador back in 2016. And because even from my own family, my friends, you know, they're like, well, what are these shoes you're wearing? And I was like, oh, can we have a couple of hours? Let me tell you about these hiking boots. Let me tell you about this. And so it, you know, as I said, it's game changing, and it's really awesome to see the progress with which the marketing and the inclusion efforts are being done, from really having a very diverse in more than just like racial identities and ethnic identities, but region wise, you know, not everyone's out, you know, in Bozeman, sorry, Basu, or, you know, or in Colorado or in the Rockies, or, you know, you got some Eastern people, you got some people in the South. And I think that's also very important, you know, gender wise. You know, I think we can do some work age wise, perhaps, because that is also, those are, the age identity is also very, very important, and very, especially with older people, very underrepresented. But, you know, I definitely, I am Team Merrill all the way, because I love the work that they've done. And also, like, just in terms of responding to the events in a really authentic way of 2020, and really responding to the ambassadors' needs, particularly the ambassadors who are people of color. When, you know, for example, there was a lot of racism on the social after Merrill did some really awesome things for Black History Month last year. And so we responded because there were lots of awful comments, and, you know, and Merrill did a really great job with turning that around and saying, you know, what is it, how can we make this better? How can we handle these comments? You know, and there are a couple of us on that team that, you know, are DE&I professionals, or JEDI professionals. And so it was really great to be able to use our skills there. I can go on and on and on, but Team Merrill all the way.
Yay, Marna, thank you so much for sharing that. How about you, Allie?
Yeah, you know, I think we've done a better job at Roughwear being inclusive towards dogs than people. And you know, as I mentioned earlier, as Roughwear is a 26-year-old company, and almost since it started, we've been creating gear for service dogs and service dog users, for guide dogs, working dogs. We're really inspired by all types of working dogs, as well as differently abled dogs who have lost a leg to cancer, or who use a dog wheelchair. So I think that it's in our nature at Roughwear to make life more enjoyable for dogs. But we haven't always been as thoughtful on the human side of things. And we actually realized in this past year that in our list of company values, and we call them our belief statements, we had a lot of statements about dogs and dog gear and the environment, but we actually didn't have anything relating to humans. And so we've been asking ourselves internally, what is it that we believe about humans and humanity? And I think also because we have been growing quite a bit in recent years, there's been more of a organic expanding awareness, along with some grassroots efforts to be more inclusive. And I would say this mindset has taken root in the past few years, but it's been a bit slow and cautious, I think, with an intention to really be genuine and intentional, and focused on building relationships. And then this year we realized that we really need to be placing a lot more urgency on this approach in order to create the change that both our employees are looking for and our customers are asking for. So I think, you know, in along this kind of at the same time, I think we also started to better understand how our internal lack of diversity limits our efforts in marketing, innovation, product design. So we partnered with Glenn Nelson at the Trail Posse, who we connected with through the In Solidarity Project. And we've also partnered with another organization called Global Bridge Builders, that takes a very like innovation and systems based approach to DEI work. So we've been working with those partnerships to set some specific goals to which we can hold ourselves accountable.
Thank you, Ali. You just made a great bridge to our next topic. I want to focus us to talk about another aspect of our external effort, partnership and a brand representation. So thank you, Ali, for kicking us off of that. Let's hear from Vasu. What partnerships have you established to assist with your representation?
That's a great question. So many of the partnerships that I've tried to reach out to have made initial efforts of supporting Black lives or various other efforts, whether it be indigenous sovereignty or land acknowledgement or disabled communities and populations, as well as the queer communities. So those are kind of ways that I've started to kind of assess a little bit before I reach out to them to develop partnerships, as well as try to hold them accountable to the words that they're putting out there, primarily on social media, to be able to, keep that momentum rolling, putting the words to action more so than anything. That's where as a D&I expert, like that's where we want to see that transparency come through, is to, talk the walk and put their money where their mouths are for the most part, so that's primarily where I've started developing partnerships with companies that are taking that first step, because I 100% know that taking that first step is the hardest step. It's primarily all downhill from there, I personally think, but there are definitely tough conversations to be had as this work continues on. Yeah, no, and I bet like Myrna's run into that too, so I'd love to hear from her as well, see what the partnership she's established.
I would say definitely similar to you, Vasu, and there are a bunch of different levels of entry in terms of doing the work of inclusion, diversity, and so of doing the work in inclusion and diversity. I think that, again, like Vasu, as an influencer, as an athlete, and also as an educator, as someone who is a consultant, I do the work in all of those ways, whether it's that sort of customer facing, that outward facing work of, just being a representative of someone in a Black body, someone in a fat body, someone in a female body, or being a consultant and doing the really intense DE&I work with the entire company. And I think there are many different ways of doing the work, and you have to do the external stuff, you have to do the internal stuff. I typically won't work with any company that is only doing external stuff. I have in the past, and I have realized my mistakes, but if you don't have the internal to go along with the external, it's meaningless, and your customers can see right through it. They know when you just hire people for a photo shoot. Because there's no authenticity in the copy, and there's no authenticity in the photos. And so, I think consumers are very, very savvy. They want to purchase and align with a brand that aligns with their own values. Like, me as someone who consumes as well. Like, I don't want to purchase anything from a company that has awful values or that doesn't have any morals, or has shown to do a lot of talking and not a lot of acting. So I think people, especially millennials and what do you call them, post-millennials, like Gen B, I don't know, but it's really important for the consumer and also for the company to realize that there is that exchange, that moral exchange that goes on in terms of building your community.
Yeah, totally. You know, just
Thank
like
you
trying
for
to avoid
mentioning
that like tokenizing part for sure. It's definitely easy to sift through as folks of color.
Yeah, you know, and I'm not gonna lie, the money is good. The money is really good, but there's a point where you lose integrity. I think both as a company and as a like a sponsored athlete or an influencer, if that work isn't being done, if it's just, you know, tokenizing me because I have a black pretty face.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Marna, for saying that. And again, like what you just shared with us really kind of ties to what I was talking about at the very beginning. There is no external change without internal change. And I think we can take a moment here right now to really talk about a pivotal moment when the company realized that they may be missing the mark on inclusivity, maybe missed this opportunity to do a simultaneous work, both internal, external. And if there's any specific moment and stories and what realization you had, we would like to hear that. So Ali, you shared a great story with me. Would you mind sharing that?
So one recent example that comes to mind for me is a holiday email that we sent out to our consumer audiences. And what we did was we took a screenshot. We had a group meeting of our entire internal team with our dogs, and we took a screenshot of that image and sent it out in a happy holidays message. And ultimately what I realized was the impact of this email was we were sending a grid image out to our audiences of white faces, or mostly white faces. And one of our customers sent a response to us pointing out our lack of diversity and asking Roughwear to do better. And for me, it was like a duh moment where, you know, like the palm to the forehead. And I realized that my own white-centered perspective had caused me to miss the potential impact of sending out this image and how it might be received by our audiences. And while I would certainly want to be transparent about what Roughwear's internal team looks like, and I know Roughwear would never want to hide our lack of diversity, I just hadn't realized, I hadn't thought about the impact of sending out this image and how it was my own white-centeredness that that was creating this blind spot. So I was really grateful to this customer who called our attention to this, and this whole experience was a good reminder of, you know, Miho, as you said, we need to do the work both externally and internally. And as long as Roughwear is made up of mostly white employees, we will continue to miss the mark, and it will be impossible for us to not miss the mark. So while diversifying our internal team will take time, in the meantime, we can look for other ways in which our white-centered perspective might be creating additional blind spots, and we can work on that.
Sweet. Yeah, so I wanted to add to Ali's experience a little bit more so on a slight pivotal moment or a slight marketing, I guess, positive that happened through the North Face, where they were partnering with the Girl Scouts. And I noticed that my fellow athlete, who is also an adaptive athlete, her name is Mo Beck, she has a limb difference on her arm, was tagged as a professional athlete instead of professional adaptive athlete. So like those little subtleties really came through, and most of it, you know, obviously within the visual aspect of the marketing, it showed that she does have a limb difference and she uses a various different technique to climb. So, you know, being redundant in the marketing of saying adaptive athlete kind of feels more extractive in the sense instead of inclusive. So that was a cool little perspective I saw that happened on North Face's side. Of course, you know, like we're not all perfect, and there's always hiccups that we run into when it comes to this stuff, because a lot of it is so nuanced. But yeah, super cool little thing to pick up on when I was just like looking through some of their content. And I know, like, you know, it sounds like Meryl is doing some of that stuff, but it's Janice, right? Is that how you say? Okay, cool.
Yep.
Janice, I know you said that you started pretty recently in the industry. Like, what made you want to jump into something that's so not representative? And then, like, what was that moment like for you?
So it's a great question, and it's probably my pivotal moment, right? Like,
Yeah.
I had this opportunity come my way, and I had to really think hard about it, right? I had to think hard about it because this was before sort of the events that took place in June, and you know, the subtle signals that are sent about whether or not you belong or not are there, right? As you know, there's a lot of signals about location, where you live. Someone's zip code says a lot about whether they're going to feel welcome. A lot of brands in the outdoor industry are in zip codes that people of color don't always feel welcome in. The advertising, the marketing that you see, and whether or not you see yourself in that, is a reflection of whether or not it's an industry that you want to be a part of. So when this opportunity came up, it's one that I had to think really hard about. One is it a place that I could be successful in? Is it a place where I could bring my true self in? And I had some really good, candid conversations with, you know, my future leader at that time, who I was going to be reporting into, and I shared some of those things with him during the sort of the recruiting process for this opportunity. Now, the interesting thing is my first day on the job was like June 1st, and so we all sort of know what happened on June 1st. And I will tell you, like, I was my first day on the job, and I was like, did I make the right decision in light of some of the events that had happened leading up to that moment in time about, is this the place where I need to be? And, you know, especially as a mom who has two boys, like, it gave me a real moment of pause. But I think what I realized is that the industry is not going to change. Society is not going to change unless we go in there and from the inside out, from the systems, from the structures, that we can be a voice that can help lead the strategies, that can help lead the representation to make those things happen. And so I'd say those were the two pivotal moments, one before I got my job opportunity here, but also one on the first day on the job. And I think I realized it's important for us to sometimes step outside of our comfort zone as people of color, people who are not represented, to go to places, to be on brands, to be on teams that might not be what we are hoping for, in order for us to make some of that difference and some of that change happen.
And if I may add, I don't know if you remember the first call I was on with you on it. I'm a very emotive person. I don't cry a lot, but when I saw your face on that call, I lost it because my heart was so full. Seeing somebody that looked like me in a decision-making position at an outdoor company, which was mind-blowing and exciting and wonderful. So it really does make a difference, because like now I feel like I really do want to continue this work, knowing that there's somebody that looks like me. Maybe we don't have the same experiences. Maybe, you know, maybe we're probably very, very different people. But
Myrna, that day, I remember that day really, really well, because it was a validating moment, right? Like, I had a lot of this dialogue I've had in my head, and your reaction that day was just like, yeah, keep doing it, matters. Like, this matters. So I really appreciated your vulnerability, because it was like the first day we were meeting, and like there were tears and stuff, but it's actually something that I needed to hear.
And I needed to see you. So thank you. Thank you for doing the work.
And this is just an amazing moment, that what we just heard, just an exchange between two women of color. And this is a testimony of why representation matters, right? So what I just heard from Janice is that, you know, you took your personal journey to challenge yourself to step out of your own comfort zone. And, you know, you did that for the greater good, for the systemic change that you wanted to see. thinking of your future generations and your own kids. And so I would love to hear more about what you have learned in your brand's journey, because we just heard your personal journey, and including what lessons have come out of any kind of mistakes that you witnessed, and how have they made your work better or more impactful?
Yeah, I think what this experience has done for me is it realized the sense of urgency. I think Ali mentioned that as she was speaking as well, is I think the team has been doing a lot, and as I had mentioned, and it's gone back for many years, but I think the sense of urgency was the first thing, that we still need to move a little bit faster. The second thing is we need to make sure that we're doing things that are going to have a meaningful and tangible impact to not only our internal organization, but also to the external sort of outdoor community. And the team put together a task force to hopefully drive that sense of urgency that's gone alignment all the way up to our brand president, and as part of our strategic growth plans, as we've discussed, around one, how are we elevating our understanding of JEDI issues within our organization with some key action items to be able to help accelerate that? How are we thinking about it from a marketing perspective? Because storytelling does have an impact about how what society sees as normal. The second thing is that we recognize that we needed to change some of our retail spaces. So as you know, Merrill has stores across the country and around the globe. And we have to take a look at that to say, like, this is the first touch point that a lot of people have. And what are we doing within those four walls to make sure that when people come in, that they have a welcoming and inclusive experience? And then the last thing is, it doesn't matter if we do all of that if from a outdoor industry perspective, we're not seeing that change. And so the organization has really taken on, like, what are things that we could help encourage, move forward, that would impact not just within our own business, but the outdoor organization. This is sort of the 4 strategic planks of sort of what we've done from a JEDI perspective. During that journey over the past 6 months, and under those planks, we've done a couple of things. We've done an internal cultural audit about where we are in our journey. We've done an audit of all of our marketing materials. We've met with different consultants and groups. Myrna led training for us within our organization. And along the way, we've discovered some vulnerabilities that we have. A great example, I think, is Myrna led a full day training session with every single employee on the Merrill brand team. And through that, she brought in different voices. And one of the things that we learned is that we are probably not representing people from the Asian community fully as a industry as well as a brand. And it was a really eye-opening experience. We then did some marketing analysis of all of our marketing assets. And we recognized, like, what we learned in this training, like, actually showed up in the numbers. So, like, real time, we're now looking at different ways of how do we think about, one, the casting and the storytelling within our plans coming forward in 2021 as well as 2022 to really expand upon that. So this is an example of how we're growing, we're evolving, we're taking every single step forward as a lesson and an opportunity for us to just keep getting better. But I think that's probably a best example of sort of how we are taking the journey of learning and trying to move it from just sort of about understanding and insights to making it more actionable and making it more transformative. Myrna, I don't know if you've been a part of this journey, as you've said, longer than like even myself. And so there might be another example that you might want to showcase of where you've seen some of that evolution as well.
Yeah, I would just say, like, just as an example, and also to add to what Vasi was saying before, in terms of normalizing people who are people of color or people who are in the disability community, or just normalizing it without necessarily calling it out. Like, for example, in Trail Runner magazine, I've been in it a couple times, but Merrill put in a full page ad on the last page without saying, here's this black fat athlete. Okay, everybody can see I'm black. Everyone can see that I'm fat. It's already a thing. But just normalizing seeing bodies that aren't thin, right? Or people of color, without just necessarily calling it out and making it about the difference, but just making it inclusive, because that's just the way the spectrum of humanity is, right? There are different types of bodies, there are different types of genders, you know, so like normalizing that, I think that that is a huge, huge step. And also was very artfully done, and very editorial, which is another thing it's really cool, like sort of elevating all people, artistically, athletically, in terms of marketing and advertising. That's the way to go, and I hope that we can continue that.
Yeah, thanks, Marna. And I think you made a great point of normalizing all different types of diversity into the marketing. And I'm hoping that one day we don't have to name all these differences, that where everybody can see themselves, right? So I think these are just a really great lessons that we can all learn from. So now let's take some time to focus on successes you have experienced in this work. So Basu, do you want to take us through some of the successes from your point of view?
Yeah, sure. So I have a horrible memory, just putting that out there. But yeah, some of the more successes, I don't have any like specific ones, but more of them have been that most of the companies I'm affiliated with are very much engaging themselves in these conversations and figuring out ways that they can be better for historically excluded communities. So that's been a massive success, at least in my lens, to see a lot of these companies, specifically not just outdoor industry, but I'm primarily within the ski industry, which I personally think is like light years behind what, you know, many parts of the outdoor industry are doing. So, you know, just being able to provide that space and acknowledgement and understanding that you know, there's a lot of work to be done, and those first steps are always difficult, has been very monumental, I think, in a lot of these companies' narratives, especially when it comes to this year specifically, along with, of course, the history of our country. So that's been a very, very successful moment as an athlete, as a consultant. And, you know, I have a slight nickname for myself, or have been called this before, of being like the friendly neighborhood disruptor. So I try to disrupt a lot of the narratives that usually tend to surface consistently in the ski industry and outdoor industry. So just a way to keep mobilizing and motivating people to keep focusing on this work of inclusion, diversity, and anti-racism work, whatever it may be in their lives. So those are kind of been some of the more broader successes I've seen, as well as just having more internal conversations, whether it be North Face or the other brands that I'm affiliated with, to be able to move forward in more subtle, nuanced, and thoughtful, intentional ways, has been very, very monumental as well. So hopefully that answers your question, but, you know, that's just kind of what I've been noticing through the work that I've been doing. And yeah, that's kind of it. I'll pass it off to other folks to be able to add to that. Seems like Janice might have some as well. So it'd be cool to hear from Meryl and Roughwear to see what they're all up to with their successes.
Thank you, Basu. Like, this is a tough one for me to answer. And the only reason why I say that is that I think success implies that the job is done and that you've reached a goal. And I think what I'm starting to realize is every time that you take a step forward, you have greater visibility to the path ahead, and you start to realize things that you didn't realize and other new blind spots that you might have. So what I understand the spirit and the intent of this. And so what I'll probably share with the team here is a little bit of what I have seen as sort of steps in the right direction that give me hope, that give me a sense that one day that my two boys are going to live in a very different space and have a very different lens of how they would look at sort of Merrell as a brand, but also Merrell as sort of the outdoor industry. I think one that I'm really excited about that's actually happening real time right now is we just launched a new sort of collaboration with Jenny Baruso and Unlikely Hikers, which is really about sort of embracing the diversity that exists with respect to all different body types, and really making sure that the products that we have reflect that as well. And the sense of having things available in wides and really making sure that all types of voices are being heard. I call that a success because I think that's the core of what it means to be a modern brand. When you have your brand purpose aligned with the products that you have and you market those stories, I think consumers, and I think someone mentioned this earlier on, talked about sort of the authenticity and about like how they see that, and that's the things that they're looking for, and all the data that we have seen supports that. Another sort of step in the right direction that gets me hopeful is that what I have realized is coming into this industry is that our success in sort of offering these experiences that we so love about running and skiing and all of that depends on the next generation understanding its value as well. And so very similarly, we just launched a partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters that we are going to be entertaining with. And that was in the spirit of how do we help bring in the next generation of outdoor people and really help build that love and that affinity for this. And the reality is that that next generation is probably going to be the ones who are going to determine whether or not we preserve the lands that we are on for people to be able to canoe and kayak and ski on going forward. That next generation are the people who are going to help us, if we're honest about it, transform what the outdoor industry looks like, because they're going to put more demands and expectations on us. And so our partnership with them was not just about sort of the mentoring, but it was about the fact that there's a philosophy that we think that there is real value in getting that next generation outdoors and understanding not only emotionally what it can do for them, but also physically what it can do for them, and also what it can do with respect to sort of us sort of thinking about sort of changing the communities that we are in. And so small steps, you know, lots of work to still be done on all of those things, but like definitely give me sort of a bit of hope and optimism about what the future is going to look like.
I'm so inspired. And you know, also like as an educator, I was a teacher for 18 years, and getting the next generation outside. I mean, like that is and getting this generation as well. I mean, that's what I live for. You know, that's why I show myself on social media. Like my core values, as well as my platform, are joy, adventure, inclusion, community, and learning. And I think that you know, to be able to align with a company and many companies that are bringing people outside and where I get to be the face of that definitely brings more people outside. Oh, Myrna does it. She's fat, she's Black, she's doing it. I'm going to do it too. And I think that this work is really, really crucial. I am very, very hopeful. We have so much work to do. You know, just as Janice said, you know, when we take a step forward, it opens up a whole new world of stuff we didn't even know existed. You know, you don't know what you don't know, right? But that's the magic and that's the joy of it. And we get to do that in the outdoors. So like, I am stoked.
I feel your stoke, Myrna. This is awesome. And it's just really clear to me that your core values really align with Morrow's values. And the Morrow is really putting an effort to communicate what brands really try to do to the world. So today we're really lucky to have Myrna and Vasu, the brand advocates and athletes, and who, you know, chose to really work with these brands. And, you know, I consider both of you very successful. And in my world, you are celebrities. So we're just curious to hear, how have you approached brands to assist with their marketing effort? Or how have you been approached by brands as a brand advocate or an athlete? And Myrna, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, you know, brands approach me in many different ways. Sometimes it is as a like a social media thing, like you know, can you do this one-off thing so that we can have some more diversity, or because you have a lot of followers, you know, and we can get our message out to your however many followers you have. You know, sometimes they ask me to work with them as a consultant. Sometimes they ask me to join their team of athletes, because whatever. We need to be more inclusive of slower paced people because they are athletes too, and also they have money to buy our products. So, like, because the bottom line is very important. Let's not forget that. And so yeah, it's in a bunch of different ways that that companies have approached me, and most of them have been really cool collaborations. Some of them not so much, but it still gives me a chance to connect with people in my community, and also just to be a representative of someone who is not white, someone who is not thin, and someone who is definitely not fast, but also doing the sports that I love and that I live.
Yeah, it's been quite the spectrum of how brands have reached out to me. Sometimes very extractive, as Myrna was saying, and most of the time to that I say no. But a lot of the times they're really wanting to listen and learn and see where it comes from, where my message is going, and if there's an overlapping value, as you were talking about. And those are the ones that I really am attracted to, as well as like seeing if they've already taken initiative on being more inclusive, whether it be, making a Black Lives Matter statement, or, having a DEI statement on their website, or having leadership or ambassadors that do, do show the full spectrum of diversity, whether that be folks of color, folks with disabilities, or the queer population. So it's, it's like, that's kind of how I've been kind of assessing it. And as Myrna said, like, on all capacities, so like as an athlete, ambassador, pawning off product, I still haven't done that. I'm really bad at talking about consumerism, but, just trying to, offer services that are based around consulting or advisory positions when it comes to this D&I work. So those are kind of the efforts that, I've seen and have had marketing or have companies reach out to me based on our own marketing, as well as like look into some like different ideas on how to reach out to different communities, whether that be creating mentorship programs or grant processes or whatever it may be. So those are some of the ways that like I've been impacting, and they've been getting impacted by some of these partnerships that we've created.
Thank you, Vasu. So we're coming close to our end of our time. So in closing, reflecting on your personal journey, I would like each one of you to summarize how this work has impacted you in one word or a phrase. It's a tough one. I'm going to ask Ali to start. So Ali, would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a phrase. The more I engage in these types of conversations, the more I learn, and that's what I find just really exciting. And that just keeps me motivated to keep wanting to engage and learn. And then I'm also going to embrace Vasu's term around being a friendly neighborhood disruptor. That's really inspiring. So thanks, Vasu. I'm gonna embrace that and carry that forward.
And I can jump in. I have two words, but they're connected. The first one is vulnerable. I don't know if many people realize how hard it is to be one of few, and sometimes it requires you to be vulnerable and to step outside that comfort zone and to share things that are hard and difficult, so that people understand the realities of what you're going through as a person of color, as a woman, and they can then hopefully through that have empathy to help find solutions and come and drive the change with you. The second one is expanding. This journey over the past 6 months, not only on the Merrill brand team, but in our society and community, I've learned so much. I've learned so much about my weaknesses and my blind spots, but all for the better. It's made me sort of rethink a lot of things, and I've expanded because of that. So sometimes when you're vulnerable, it allows you to expand.
Oh, there are lots of things going through my head, and none of them are artful. But what stands out to me is the work never ends. It never ends. We are always working, but it is rad work, and I love it.
The way I'm trying to encapsulate it is that we all belong outside, and that's definitely what this work and this journey has showed me, is the diverse user groups and humans and people that are out there that are impacted by experiencing the outdoor world. Our natural spaces is expansive, and just trying to put people first always when it comes to any of this stuff, instead of all the other things that we might get clouded by. So we all belong outside. That's where I've been at.
And thank you, Vasu. Just ending with that, we all belong to the outdoors, and that's really why we're here, right? Like, we recognize that we all belong. And again, going back to what I was addressing in the beginning, that we are in this moment that we have to connect, we have to partner, we have to learn from each other. And we can all come to this place of belief that we all belong. So thank you so much for sharing all of these messages. And just to summarize what I just heard is that, Ali was talking about engaging conversation and being a friendly, disruptor. So don't stay in silence when you witness something, that you can be the disruptor, and you can interrupt any kind of aggressions that happen at the workspace in a personal life. And it's all start in a conversation. And Denise was talking about, beauty of lead with vulnerability and empathy, right? Like, I think we really need that emotional intelligence at this moment to really relate to each other. And again, building the relationship. That's really crucial. And hopefully that will support us to expand our horizons, to really see some of the blind spots that we never seen before. And also that allows us to see what Marna was saying, that work never ends. And it's perfect phrase that you said, Marna, because you're runner, right? Like, it really talks about endurance. So, pace yourself and make sure to take care of yourself, because we want you to keep running, not just for the next year or two. I'm embracing myself to run till the end of my life. So it's an endurance and a long journey that we're all on together. So with that, I just want to close by saying thank you so much for joining today's session. And especially like to thank our speakers for sharing their experiences and lessons learned. And again, this is a critical work. And no matter where we are on a journey to a more just, inclusive, and equitable outdoor industry, there's always more we can learn, as we just talked about. So we hope this session was valuable and provided you with actionable steps forward. And if you have any questions on the content from this session, please email events@outdoorindustry.org, and OIA will work with the speakers to respond to your question. And this session will also be available on demand, as will all other OIA education sessions on the OR platform, which will remain open until March 19th. Thank you again for joining us today. Take care.
Would I normally get the icon pass? Sure. But with all that Gertrude's got going on, planning her wedding and whatnot, there's just no time. Do I regret not getting the icon pass? Yeah, right.
Yeah, you do. You're cooped up here, losing your mind.
That's not true.